welcome to Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades. I'm Gary Harper, your host, with my co-host, Sir Eric of Eastman, former state legislator. And
yes, indeed.
Hey, so if I self-identify as a sexy, handsome young guy, do women have to find me attractive?
I don't know if they're compelled to, because that's a matter of choice, but it depends on how they self-identify.
Well, wait.
Do they self-identify as somebody who would find someone who themselves identifies as a sexy, handsome young man?
Yeah, but like, in other words, in today's society, if a young girl... What? If a woman identifies as a man or identifies as whatever variations in between, we as a society are supposed to acknowledge that identity and treat them as if they are what they say they are. Irrespective of what they functionally are.
Of what our eyes are telling us.
Correct. So therefore, somebody might look at me, I'm sure nobody ever has, but look at me and think of me as an old, overweight guy. But if I self-identify as a young, virile, sexy, handsome guy, are they obligated to treat me that way?
It's the virile part that's going to have to be a bit of a...
It's too much of a stretch?
Hurdle, not that...
No.
Not that I make any inferences here.
No, I didn't gather that.
Well, I don't know. It depends on what the sandwich sign reads that you hang around your neck as you walk around with this self-identification complex.
Yeah, I probably should have to have... That's
you might
a good way to do that. If we're going to have people going around who self-identify...
Yeah, seeing as you can't read my mind,
right?
Here's what I want you to think.
Then they should have a sign, a fluorescent sign above their head, say, identify me as... And
standard issue.
Standard issue.
Yeah.
Because that would help, because you can't just have a name tag, because I can't, my eyes aren't very good.
Now, can you change your self-identification affiliation down at town hall once a year? Or pretty much any time?
I don't know. If we make the signs right, like they're nice and big so the visually impaired like myself can see them. If they're nice and big and they're electronic, you could just change it daily.
What about for those of us that are credibility impaired? I mean,
right.
I could wear the sign and people still ain't buying.
Right, yeah.
So.
Yeah, but you have to say, all you have to do is self-identify as being credible.
Oh, that's right. That's a neat trick.
Right?
I love relativism.
No, because that way you could have been lying to everybody your whole life, but you all of a sudden said, nope, today, from now on, I am credible. And you just put that on the sign. So people have to believe whatever you say after that point.
This whole time prior to now, you thought I was lying to you, but I was running a game on you, and the fact is I was telling the truth.
Right.
So, just to update y'all.
Just to update you. I am
This is working.
I know. It's a good idea.
This is great spin.
We could start selling the signs.
Self-spin.
Self-spin, right.
I love it. I don't know. How do you people at home feel?
Yeah,
Give us a call.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell us how you're self-identifying today.
Right.
Yeah, that's going to be the new generalized question. It's not how you're doing.
No. How do you self-identify? Do you self-identify as happy? Heterosexual? Transsexual? Quadrisexual? Whatever it is?
Marsupial. And I know there are going to be some viewers and listeners out there. I just sense it. My spidey sense is tingling. That are going to get a little frosty about the fact that we're making such sport out of the notion of folks who sincerely and very earnestly self-identify in a certain way, shape or form. That right. Yeah, Wonder Twin powers activate.
Yes.
And are trying to articulate that in a way that other people are going to not only understand, but are going to buy into and participate in this.
Yeah, but see, that's actually not the problem.
And we don't mean to offend, even though we're really good at it.
Well, maybe you don't. So.
But what we ourselves, in our limited white middle-aged male minds, are trying to wrap our heads around.
Thank you for putting me in the middle-aged category. I know that was you were being generous.
Well, I'm a walking anachronism. I am from the Middle Ages.
Right.
I don't know. Does it show?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it does.
A little bit.
It does.
Yeah. So we're working with this, and grant us the latitude we need to figure
hang
it out.
ourselves.
Apparently, we need to catch up, and we're doing it with a little bit of irreverent humor. So nothing on you. It's all us.
Well, the thing is, I'm saying it in half seriousness because people are offended if you don't identify them a certain way.
Some do.
Yes, and so how
Right.
how is that my responsibility to know what you are sensitive about and or how you want to be identified? Why, you know,
I sense that
it's like-
you want to be identified.
right, yeah, unless you call the Psychic Hotline Network before you talk to anybody, it's just not reasonable. I mean, I have a difficult time
It's not reasonable to expect everyone to read your mind. Or
read your mind
now,
or
what about
understand.
your body language or your mode of dress? That's a bit of a giveaway, don't you think?
Not
If somebody
necessarily.
adopts a certain mode of dress that suggests that their self-identification diverges from what you might initially assume.
You still wouldn't know because they might. There's so many variations. I forget how many. There's like 50 shades of sexuality now. So how the heck do you know?
According to some.
According to some.
Right.
So if there's 50 shades, how am I supposed to know if that's the variation between shade 47 and 48? How am I supposed to know?
Well, you
I
can carry
can't
around
even-
one of those charts that we help 3-year-olds figure out their feelings with different faces that have different, pencil sketch
3-year-olds
expressions.
can't figure out how they feel.
Oh, you know, this chart at in the doctor's office or the child's shrink's office that says, "How are you feeling today?" And it's got about 100 different smiley faces, some of which ain't smiling. And they say, "I feel like that one." So let's make
What?
up.
What kind of crap is that?
That's not. It works. It helps people say, "Oh, I'm feeling melancholy," when they don't know the word. Whatever. But the point I'm trying to get at poorly is, what if we make up a chart? What if we make up a chart that has each one of those 50 different quote unquote shades
Maybe-
of sexuality and says, "Which one are you?"
Maybe that's an
Like
app.
in a scroll, just like,
Wait,
"Here,
wait. No, I
Point
got
to it.
I got a solution. I got a solution.
help me out here so I can talk to you right. Use
Right.
the right pronouns.
Right? So I got a solution.
Okay. What's that?
Somebody makes an app.
There's an app for that.
A 50 shades of sexuality
There's
app.
going to be an app for that.
Right?
Now that we've
So with facial recognition, you look it through your phone, you look up and say, "Oh, that's Bob. He's a cis male."
What if you have a very expressive face, or you're trained in acting or something like that, and you can throw a curveball at the app?
Right.
You know,
Yeah, and then they'll get offended because you guessed
And now
wrong,
you've
you get the
artificially
app wrong. Well, then
set
you-
it up so that you get to be offended.
Well, then and then then you can sue the designers of the app.
I love it. I'm not supposed to hit the table. Sorry,
No,
there,
you're not
Mr.
supposed to
Engineer.
hit the table. You're a bad person.
That's right.
So anyway,
I
that
like
was-
this. We just found a new way to abuse the judicial system,
Exactly.
as well as extort money from
from people who
well-meaning app designers.
Exactly,
This is
exactly,
good.
and
This
that's
is good.
that
This is
a
how we
really
roll,
good-
folks.
This is perfect.
This is America, post-millennial America. This is how it works.
Exactly. So you brought a book. The book. What book did you
Yeah,
bring?
I'm a bit of a bibliophile, which means I think
You
books
like
are,
the Bible.
books are kind of groovy. And so I'm going to put in a plug for one of our local
Bibliophiles.
grocery stores,
Biblo-
Hannaford's,
wait,
and they didn't
so-
pay me to do this. They run this book exchange in a lot of their stores. I live in Nashua. They're a company that's based out of Maine. They serve a lot of the Northeast. They've got stores
Is
everywhere.
bibliophile one of those shades of sexuality?
It could be.
Yeah. Okay.
A highly literate quadra sexual.
Sexual,
or something like that.
trisexual, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on the book you're reading, whether it has to do
Right.
with sex or whatever.
Triceratops.
So anyway, I found this book at one of those book exchanges. You know, you walk in the entryway and there's a bin or a bookcase or something like that, and you grab a book, you pay a couple of bucks, and it goes to a good cause, different cause every week, something like that. So I want to thank them, that particular grocery store, not to the exclusion of other grocery stores who do great things for their communities, but this particular one does what I just described. And I found this.
What is that?
Look, this is a huge compendium of Stories for Christmas by Charles Dickens.
Oh, no way.
Check it out, even with gold leaf on the cover here.
Wow.
Can we jump in on that a little
Those
bit
are some
and
gruesome things he talks
get a-
about. You know.
kind of get a grab on that book cover? Hey, look, we've all seen cool book covers. No big deal, but I think it is a big deal because in this increasingly digital age, finding a good book that's got a lot of value and a lot of cultural, I don't know.
Wait. I can see it. Can I see it now?
I don't know. I've run out of words. which is sad for a person that likes books.
Yeah, you would think
Let's
you'd.
have a look at the inside too.
Yeah.
Oh, we have the camera there.
Wow,
Seriously?
look how tight camera is. That's
That
impressive.
is.
Even has a little red ribbon, to find your place and all that, the way they used to make books.
Does that have a copyright on it?
Yeah, find that copyright.
Why, you're not supposed to film it?
I think it's the next page, probably. But I
was
found it.
just interested to find out how old the book is.
Yeah, first couple of pages. Will tell
New
you.
York 2001, anyway,
No
so it's not
way.
that old, yeah.
No way, that's amazing. What's the original pressing on this thing?
Down here.
Well, I mean, it's Charles Dickens. We know when it was written.
Chucky. I called him Chuck.
Old Chuck. Yeah, I'm not finding it there, brother.
Wait.
Not
no.
finding it. But I mean, you've got a ton of great stuff. Christmas Tree, What Christmas Is as We Grow Older. Hadn't heard of that one. The Schoolboy Story, Seven Poor Travelers, The Wreck of the Golden Mary, The Perils of Certain English Prisoners. I'm going to read that one first. So it's cool.
Let me see what else
It's
they got.
just,
They
it's
got
just
any-
something you don't find every
Didn't
day.
Charles
And
Dickens
thanks
was
to my
kinda
local
cool, man.
grocery store and their book drop, purpose to raise money for various charities, I was able to acquire that. So I want to thank them for running a nice program that
So
helps the
now I
community.
get it.
What?
The Bing Crosby song about. Oh gosh, I listen.
Where were you
Jingle
going with
Bells,
that?
Jingle Bells. No, it's not Jingle Bells. The.
Are you self-identifying
I'm
as a lucid man today?
Yeah, no. I'm dreaming of. Was it White Christmas? Yeah, I'm dreaming of a white Christmas.
This is how you're spending your evening.
Just like
People of
the
Manchester.
ones.
Hmm?
Anyway, I think in that one it
used to
says.
know.
No, it was. Anyway, there's one about scary ghost stories. There's a verse in there about scary ghost stories.
Wow, the thought linkage
I don't know.
between the various
It
things
makes
you've said in the
sense now
last
because
calendar
one of
minute
the- No, it all
are
makes
really
sense.
hard to follow.
Because the stories for Christmas by Charles Dickens, one of them is The Haunted House.
Oh, really?
See?
Oh, that's cool.
That's where that all came from. Now
I
I
got
get
you.
the link.
I got you.
Now I understand.
There's a lot of good stuff out there in the world, and a lot of people. There's a lot of bad news. We're surrounded by it. The media pushes bad news, but every now and then you just hear something simple about something someone did or an organization did, and it reminds you that there's good in the world, and this is evidence. So, bada bing. There you go.
That is
Big
good
thick
news.
book, 2.5 inches thick, and now it's mine. Paid for
Forever.
it fair and square. I helped out a good cause. I'm
How
not
does
sure
that
which cause it was, but
Whatever. It's at least a cause.
yeah.
Cause you wanted to.
And it's stories for Christmas, so now I get to, I don't know, do something with it.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe,
if the show gets too long and
it's got
we could actually
illustrations,
read one of the stories find a short one. You could probably read it out loud
We'll
in your
have,
Christmas voice.
Oh, we'll
Do you
have
have
to.
a Christmas voice? You're an actor. You should have a Christmas voice.
I actually play. This book features a Christmas Carol, and I did play Scrooge once upon a time, and it still holds up as one of my favorite roles of all time.
That was a ghost story
To
too.
my top 5. Oh yeah, yeah. You better believe it. It's creepy, but it
Wicked creepy.
it tells us that no matter how down in the dumps or no matter how damaged you get, that there's always redemption and there's always a way to see a new day as a new day, and to change.
Is that the
your
one
perspective
Tiny
and
Tim's in?
all that sappy stuff. So
Hey, is that the one
Tiny
Tiny Tim?
Tim,
Is
yeah.
Tiny Tim?
bless us everyone.
Bless us, everyone.
Right.
They have
There you go.
in future in Futurama they have a Tiny Tim character that's always getting hosed.
So
Sorry.
that the producers of the show have absolutely no compassion, huh?
Oh no, it's wicked bad. it's so brutal.
Oh well.
But the Tiny Tim is a little robot who's
Oh well. We live in a cynical age. So, this is my one moment of not being cynical for the holidays. I don't know if it worked.
no,
Hey.
yeah.
There it is.
No, but okay. Here's something to talk about because I would have.
Sure.
Okay,
What do you got?
you were talking about how the news is always negative.
It's
So
often negative.
It
yeah.
often is. It
Yeah,
is.
sure.
So what is the motivation?
You folks agree? Call in. Let's talk about it.
So what is the motivation for Washington to resolve any issue? Let me elaborate.
I think I know where you're going with this, and I
We got-
had a knee-jerk answer, but I'm going to wait.
We have problem X, because everybody has a problem with X. If it's in math, it's
I don't know. They were one of my favorite bands of the '80s.
Oh, I
and
didn't know there
still,
was
I
a
still have a
band
crush
named
on
X.
Exene Cervenka.
Is
Sorry,
that-
John Doe, but you know,
whatever. Anyway,
they were a
so
good band.
not the band. I'm talking about the letter X.
Oh, that.
Yeah. So everybody has a problem with X.
Okay.
Okay. So the Democrats want to subsidize X and fix X. And the Republicans believe that that's a personal decision and the government doesn't need to be involved in X. All right? So the
Okay.
people who want less government send Republicans hundreds of thousands of dollars every year to make sure that X isn't legislated. The Democrats who are compassionate and want to make sure
Who
that
self-identifies? being compassionate.
self-identify, yeah, exactly,
Yes.
as being compassionate,
Slight difference.
want to help people with X, and therefore hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions of dollars, goes to the
Millions.
Democratic coffers every year to make sure that X becomes law.
Okay.
Okay? Now, here's the rub. This is my point. If the Democrats were successful to fix X, who's going to send them money? Nobody. If-
No, they'll just find another pet cause.
Well, right, it doesn't matter. They will not resolve X because they can't get money for it. Like the Democrats had complete control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency from 2009 to the end of 2010,
Right.
right? So it's 2 years they had complete control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency.
Kind of like the Republicans have for the last calendar year.
Correct.
All right.
Did they resolve anything to do with immigration? No. Did they resolve any issue regarding anything? No. They did get Obamacare through. They pushed that through, but that was about it.
But Obamacare is an abomination.
I get that.
Of what it was originally envisioned to
But
become.
the Republicans benefited from that too, because they got
It gave them another rallying cry. And I would add that the Republicans are a mirror image of what you just described, because in this last calendar year, they failed to repeal and replace, or even draft a version that was
Credible.
A, understandable, B, credible, and C, passable. So what is this
What's
this
my point?
circus tell us? Both parties perpetuate these arguments. Why? Because
Money.
there's money in it, right?
There's no. In other words,
And if they solve these problems, then they would be ceding some of their power
Correct.
over the issue itself.
yes. So there's no motivation in Washington D.C. to resolve anything.
I think you're onto something. I think a couple other people might have had that same thought.
Oh, I didn't
in
say it
one
was
way or
original.
another.
No.
But it's important to pull back and see the gamesmanship
Yes.
and the fake brinksmanship that these groups practice.
Yeah.
Because
That's actually why I bring it. It was
They're not trying to fix your life.
It was. I think it was a book written by a guy, I don't know, 10 or 20 years ago, who actually brought that point up, and he was talking about gun rights.
Yeah.
Or against gun rights. I don't know. It really didn't matter which. He said, well, there's just too much money. The Democrats get so much money to further gun control. Why would they ever resolve anything or concede anything? I mean, you got Chuck
Sure.
Schumer has a right to permit to carry.
Sure.
So he doesn't believe his own arguments.
Well, of course, it's a whole boatload of do as I say, not as I do.
Right. So if they don't even believe in their own arguments, but they keep forwarding them, it has to be because they keep wanting more money to run for office so they can stay in power.
If you had that much power, would it be difficult to let go of?
I presume so. That's what
Okay.
Abraham Lincoln said.
Did he?
Yep.
Who's actually credited with that quote, absolute power corrupts and all that?
Oh, I don't know about that, but no, it was Abraham Lincoln said something about corruption. He said, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember it exactly, but it's easy for a poor man to be ethical. Try doing it when you have power,
I think that's a fair.
because when you're
It's a
poor, there's
fair
no
insight.
temptations. You know, if you're poor, downtrodden, there's not women trying to seduce you, or men trying to seduce you, or people clamoring to get you to talk to them and be friends with them, and everything else.
I think everybody has ethical conundrums, ethical challenges
Yes.
and choices to make. But I just think the consequences are bigger.
Right.
Hey, we got an incoming call. This is cool. Got some participation from the listening public. Shall we take it?
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, caller.
Hey, this is Norm. How are you?
Hi,
How are you, Norm? What's going on?
Hey, I want to say, wonderful President Donald Trump for giving us and helping to give us a nice pay raise at our Social Security. When the former president was in there, I think once we got a 1% pay raise, and that was just when he was getting out of office. But you know what? Trump helped us. Trump helped us to get a better pay raise at our Social Security.
What did we
And
get?
That's the man. That's the hero.
What did he get?
Thank you.
Hey, Norm.
Yeah,
What was it? What was the percentage?
I got a 3.2.
Whoa, that is actually the cost of living.
That's a cost
Yeah.
of living index that's
So,
consistent.
And if it wasn't,
Wow.
if it was a Democrat, we wouldn't get it, right?
No, when the Democrats were in, they would just rearrange what the cost of living variables were so that you didn't get anything.
Right.
I didn't know that.
So
Thanks
I'm
for
very
sharing that.
delighted. Trump's the man. We got to get him in there for another 8 years.
You betcha.
Thanks for calling, Norm. We
Okay, thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Yeah.
Anybody who has 20/20 vision is voting for Trump in 2020. Get it? 2020
Yeah,
vision,
yeah.
2020.
I'm
Vision.
laughing on the inside. I really am. So here's a question: if he's given us that the cost of living index increase,
Yes.
which we all appreciate, we all recognize that Social Security should keep pace with the changes in the cost of living, if
Yeah.
it can. What kind of commentary has come from the Oval Office, specifically from the Oval Office, about how Social Security is going to be made more sustainable, given the fact that it numerically isn't, because the baby boomer generation is retiring en masse,
That's actually not why.
and there are fewer and fewer people entering the workforce paying
That
into the
still
fund?
isn't why.
Okay, well, those factors do exist.
They do exist.
They do impact the math,
They do.
and it creates a challenge, to say the least.
Okay,
How
let's
we're going to make that system
yeah, but
sustainable.
let's go back to why to begin with. Okay, so
what?
Social Security is having difficulty.
Okay.
Social Security, when it was implemented, was to make sure that when people reached the point where they really couldn't work anymore, 65 was actually pretty old when this was implemented, okay? So when they reached a point where they were infirmed or they were at an age where it was not reasonable to expect them to work, they would have some guaranteed income so that they weren't living on the streets. So grandma didn't end up living, panhandling. So the government implemented Social Security. When they introduced it, it was supposed to be a savings plan where they put the money aside and it would accrue interest, and when you became at the age of retirement, it would be enough to pay you back the money you put into it, almost
Sure.
like a 401k,
Or an annuity or something.
and they weren't supposed to touch it. Well, as soon as that money started coming in and they looked at this big chunk of change sitting over there,
It was
in
too
the
tempting.
It was too tempting,
Yeah.
and they spent it.
They started raiding
They
the
started raiding the Social Security fund.
treasure chest. Sure.
So it's not insolvent because of the people who paid into it. It's insolvent because of the dirtbags in D.C. who raided it.
I couldn't agree more. That, too, is a major, major factor in its potential insolvency.
Yeah.
So that brings us back to the central question. I mean, I've heard ideas coming from all quarters, members of Congress and commentators and what have you, economists, about how to fix it long term so that it remains sustainable,
Right.
remains somehow solvent. But
Yeah,
I
would-
haven't heard a lot of commentary coming out of the White House, this White House.
Right.
And I'm curious if there has been, if you knew of any.
I think you have to. I think the problem is I think you have to be logical, and that's not something they do in D.C. And for instance, if I had a silver mallet that would fix things, can silver mallets? You know any legend where a silver mallet fixes things? Because I think
I just had a visual of a guy
It's pretty
raising a
good.
silver mallet to the heavens. It's
is that great?
almost Thor-like. And then
Yes, but
it's
more
silver, so it's
refined. It's
gleaming.
not. It's not as rogue. Anyway, so he raises a silver mallet. Gosh,
Or is
I
it a
got- I-
gavel?
I
A
gotta
silver gavel.
I gotta find the box that people think inside of because I don't know where it is. At least I lost mine.
Okay, so back to
So
our
anyway,
silver mallet. What's it
silver
going to do
mallet,
for you?
silver mallet. I'm using the silver mallet, and I come down with the answer. And one of the answers, at least, would be that I don't know what the life expectancy was when Social Security was first implemented, but let's say it was 70. Okay.
Based on life expectancy or
Yeah.
mortality rates? or
Mortality
something?
rates. Okay,
All
so
right.
it was 70. Let's just say that for argument's sake.
Okay.
So they set the bar at 5 years prior to death. You could retire on Social Security, right?
Okay.
So that 65 number should be 5 years under and maintain to be 5 years under what the average life expectancy is, so it stays constant, as opposed to
So changes in mortality rates based on improvements in medical technology and life expectancy and what have you ought to be imposed on the calculations for eligibility
Yes.
for Medicare
correct.
and Social Security.
Yes.
Not necessarily Medicare, but Social Security.
Yes.
Okay. Why is it? What is the rationale for people enjoying that benefit for 5 years on average only?
I don't know.
Where does that come from?
I'm just pulling numbers out of a hat.
Oh, okay. All
Okay,
right.
so I don't know. I'm just saying that when it was first implemented, it was 65. So if I don't think it actually was. I think it was actually younger than that. when it
There was a
first.
rationale of some sort.
There
that
was
set the
some
age at
rationale
65.
that people should be able to retire at 65. Then they probably are going to pass away at 70, and some of them will pass away before that. Some of them will after that. But basically, the average is 70.
Sure.
And I'm just these are just ridiculous numbers that I came up with. I don't know.
And
what
life
they're
in the
really-
Western world has changed.
It has.
Our gadgets have gotten better. Technology's
And
changed
actually,
their life expectancy.
actually, if you went by that calculation, also, it's actually not as harsh as it would have been, because when people reached 65 back in the day, a lot of them were blue collar workers who were really working themselves to the bone, and
Right.
retiring at 65 was more of a necessity than an option.
Yeah, and making it to that age,
Was
working
pretty rough.
full-time was a trial.
Right.
'Cause-
Whereas most people do office type work and things like that where their body is not taxed to the extent that it was back then.
Sure. No, I mean not in terms of the percentage of the general population
Correct,
whose
yes.
bodies are taxed at work.
Right. There's still people that are obviously
Comparatively,
work
it's-
hard,
it's
but
changed. Yeah. Yeah, there's some
Anyway.
real hard workers out there.
Yes.
Ever watch that show Dirty Jobs with Mike Rowe?
no.
It was it's pretty eye-opening. Anyway, so
I did one of those for 34 years. So
Yeah,
but it was-
machine shop, right?
Machine shop's
Sure.
pretty.
Sure. I was the maniac high up on the scaffolding getting all the high peaks as a painter, as a commercial
Like
and
Michelangelo.
house painter. Yeah, swinging from the rafters. People going, I don't want to go up there. Are you kidding me? You know, yeah, I'm going. So I'm like, oh. Yeah, my respect for gravity has grown a little bit.
A little bit,
as
yeah.
time has gone on. But we digress as usual.
No, not us.
So what do? We two geniuses sitting here trying to figure out how
Well,
to
we
fix
already
Social
used, we
Security.
already fixed part of it with our silver mallet,
Oh, that's right.
right? So we got that one part fixed.
Whatever details we missed, the silver mallet will take
The silver
care of.
mallet, yeah, and then the
Okay, good. Just, hey, I trust your mallet.
right.
It's not a metaphor.
So anyway, I got another silver mallet.
Yeah, what you got in mind?
And I told you that on Matt's show earlier. This is my other silver mallet. was the people are talking in the Republican tax plan of phasing out the mortgage interest deduction.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's an interesting discussion because I
Okay.
heard both sides and they were both compelling. But
Right. Okay. So this is my argument. When you go to buy a house, they determine what you can afford by how much you make a month. And what you can afford is typically something around 25% of what you earn per month.
Right.
Okay? Then they factor in the mortgage rate, the taxes, and the rebate you get on your taxes for the mortgage the interest payment on the mortgage. That's part of the calculations as to what you can afford. My argument is that that variable, that interest rate variable, jacks up the price of the houses because more people, if there's a $200,000 house, now because of that interest rate deduction, more people can afford that $200,000 house, so the price creeps up in price
Based on demand?
based on demand, which is how free market works.
Because more people qualify.
Because more people qualify.
Got it.
So therefore, all you do is actually, you don't really gain anything by it. All you do is pay more for the house you would have been able to afford otherwise.
So the deduction actually artificially, the net effect is that it artificially jacks up the
The
market
value of the house.
Got
And
it.
so the only people that actually gain financially from the mortgage interest deduction are the banks because you borrow more money.
Which I find to be a very credible analysis, and yet I heard a countervailing argument that when we were stepping in as surprise guests on
Matt, yeah.
on Matt Connerton's radio show a little bit earlier this evening, that wait a minute, what about hardworking people who are just scraping by for whom that deduction,
There's a difference
a great
between
gift.
Right, yeah.
you know, it's a real piece of tax relief that they're receiving, and it makes their ability to shoulder their monthly burden that much more accessible, you know, with their 2 jobs and their 3 kids and all that kind of thing. So that was an interesting angle on what you've just described. How would you answer that?
I would answer that with, if that, let's just say I used my silver mallet and boom, that deduction was gone, you wouldn't have bought the house. The house you bought, the price would have come down to the point that you still would have been able to afford it without it.
So you're saying that
So all you did
your
was borrow
eligibility
more money.
to get that mortgage would have been adjusted accordingly
Correct.
at the time of purchase,
Yes.
and you may not have been able to get that house in the first place anyway,
Right.
retroactively speaking.
Yeah, retroactively. Yeah, but
Okay.
in the perfect silver mallet world, in the perfect silver mallet,
I'm a little frightened of this dimension.
Yes.
This mallet dimension.
in the perfect silver mallet world, you would, that price would have been, the price of that house would be lower because that deduction wasn't there, and so you still would have been able to afford it. Your finances would not change at all.
So you're saying
Functionally, there would be zero difference to how much house you got for in either case. You would still get exactly the same house. It would still be exactly the same burden. The only difference is in with subsidies by the federal government, you are jacking up the price of the house, and therefore the bank gets more money.
so it's
The only one who
artificially
benefits is Wells Fargo.
it's monkeying with the market,
It is.
and it's making the bankers the winners.
The banker's the winner.
What do you folks think about that? Give us a call. Let us know. Okay.
Now that
so
idea,
let-
I
let
don't
me-
think I've actually heard anybody articulate, but it's just common sense.
No, it's big food for thought, and I think it's a theme that is going to resonate with a lot of people who are struggling to make ends meet. Those that are lucky enough to own, right?
Right.
And that's a wonderful thing. Now let me throw you a hypothetical. What if you've paid off your house?
Yeah.
That doesn't speak for the majority, but there are some people that have done that. So the mortgage is paid. Does that scenario that you've described somehow penalize people that are in that have that profile, that have paid off their house and they're no longer
Well, the
subject
current system actually
or no longer
penalizes.
eligible for that deduction?
The current system penalizes people for paying off their house, i.e., the banks win.
Okay, so either way, the banks win.
Yeah, either way, the banks win. Because if you pay off your house, you get somebody will say, "Well, you can pay off your house, but then you don't get the deduction." So you might want to just take another loan out on it.
Okay, so they're incentivizing indebtedness,
Yes, they're
financial slavery. They're incentivizing.
basically, yes, they are incentivizing slavery,
That's just ducky.
isn't it?
That's just ducky.
I wonder who wrote those laws. Actually, I think I could be wrong. I don't remember exactly, but I think what it was originally
The
was
banksters.
really good. It was for guys coming back from World War II to help them afford to buy a house. I think I'm not positive on that.
It was a part of the GI Bill.
It was kind of part of that, and then everybody says, "Well, what about me?" And next thing you know, it's all across the board. So all it accomplished at that point is jacking up the price of the houses, and feathering the nest of Wells Fargo.
Right. So since the housing market has an ebb and flow, and obviously in terms of prices, and whether it's a buyer's market, seller's market, and that changes all the time, sometimes very slowly. It raises the question of how much of a factor are these dynamics, tax code, on those fluctuations in the housing market.
Right.
Not that we'll somehow
I don't
sprout extra brain cells and solve that question.
explain the question. I don't quite get it.
I don't know if I can again.
Because if I'm going to pull out my silver mallet, I have to have more information.
Well, the housing market fluctuates.
Yes.
We know this.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes it moves at a snail's pace in terms of its changes. Buyer's market, seller's market.
Sometimes when the Democrats force banks to loan money to people that can't afford it, it crashes quite quickly.
Force?
Yes.
That's an interesting choice
Oh,
of
they did.
words. Okay. But you're pointing the finger at a particular political party. Is
Correct.
it necessarily a party?
There's people
Not
like
that I'm any fan of the platform
no,
of
it was
that particular
people.
party,
No,
but
it was people.
let me devil's advocate here for a second.
Yes, dear.
So I'm just saying, I like the word banksters just because it's got a cool ring to it.
Right.
Is it irresponsible lending, a climate of irresponsible lending? Is it not that activity that gave rise to the problem you just described, more so than it is necessarily a political party?
No, it was a political party trying to do favors for their friends, their constituency, which is people that couldn't afford houses, and they came up with the argument that people couldn't afford houses because banks weren't held.
They were too stingy.
They were too stingy.
Sure.
Because before, when you and I went to buy a house, they looked at how many things you have paid off, right? Your
Sure.
credit rating.
Sure.
And they looked at how much money you were making and whether it was a reasonable risk to lend you that money. Because they don't really want to own houses. It's not something banks want to do.
Sure.
They want you to be
They want you paying interest.
a good servant
Successfully.
and paying them off on a regular basis.
Sure.
Okay, so anyway, Barney Frank,
So you're saying it's lawmakers.
Barney Frank, and a bunch of others basically threatened the banks. I think it was under Clinton, and said that you're not giving out loans to people because everybody deserves to have a house if they want one. We got to be fair type of
Somehow
mentality.
it magically became everyone's right to own a house.
Yeah, it became magically everybody's right to own a house.
Interesting thinking.
And they started lending money to people who really couldn't afford to pay it back. Okay, in some of the inner cities and things like that. So then,
I defer to our hosts' much broader institutional memory about the
I should be
activities of Congress.
institutionalized. You're
well,
right.
that goes without saying, of
Yes.
course. You and your silver mallet.
Right.
But
Me
not to derail your
and
explanation
my
here.
mallet walking down the avenue.
I I'm with you.
I'm with. Yeah. So anyway, so they had all these mortgages that they couldn't. They knew the probability of them getting their money back was pretty low, so they bundled them together and sold them overseas and stuff like that. But they were bundled together, so it was hard to look at a specific mortgage.
Right.
And that's when the whole that's what
Selling
quote
that.
unquote subprime mortgage is.
Mm-hmm.
And they sold those off, and then when people started, when people realized that they had been sold a bunch of useless pieces of paper, that's when the bottom fell out. 2008. You can thank Sir Barney of Frank and others for that. I think he was actually dating the guy from Fannie Mae, which seems appropriate.
There's a song in
Why
there.
do they have Fannie Mae? Isn't that kind of like a weird name?
So is Freddie Mac.
Yeah, but Fannie Mae is like, it refers to the posterior of a human being, and
Well,
then you
no,
got Barney Frank, who's a little bit light in the loafers.
Fannie Mae. I
and-
don't know. It's a term that's somehow reminiscent of mid 20th century consumable merchandise, or like a candy company or something.
Right.
But
Fannie Farmer. That's what you're
Fannie.
thinking.
Yeah. There it is.
Now
There
we
it is.
got
There's
it.
the link.
Okay, so anyway, that's one
So
thing.
that's how it all went down. Thank you for that synopsis, because you actually clarified a couple of things for me.
Okay, so hey, you want to hear the other one?
Reminded a lot smarter people out there of what went down.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot more smarter people that know I'm full of crap. So, hey, so here's the other one.
I won't claim to be one of them.
Anyway, so here's the other one. My magic mallet would be used to resolve the greatest amount of debt people have right now is student loans. More so than even credit cards at this point.
Oh yeah, you just hit a nerve with me, because I happen to have offspring that have a bunch of student debt, and I wish I could do more to help resolve it, because it is a real ball and chain.
It is.
It's a real ball
And so
and
you know
chain.
how you resolve that?
What's that?
You get the federal government out of it.
How are you going to do it?
You do it like this. From now on, the federal government will not loan or guarantee any student loans.
Suddenly, like that?
Period.
You just pull the
Tomorrow-
plug?
I use the mallet. I'm using my silver mallet tonight.
A lot of the counter argument being, and I'm sure you know.
Let
what the
me finish it.
counter-argument
Let me
is. Okay,
finish
go
it.
ahead.
Let me finish with my silver mallet argument, and then you can
All
counter. So now the government's out of it. No guaranteed loans, nothing. You go to the bank and say, look, I want to get a 4-year degree in X. Not X, we'll use Y, because we've already aggravated the people who like X. So we'll go with Y.
Yeah.
I want a degree in Y.
Democrats are messing with X on the
Right,
Hill,
exactly.
Like you said earlier.
So I want a degree in Y. The
Okay.
bank is going to look at who's your co-sponsor or your co-signer, if their parents can afford it, and they're going to look at does Y actually produce people who can actually make enough money to pay that back.
Do graduates of Y
Do graduates of Y actually make enough money after their 4-year degree that they can afford to pay that
on
back?
average that they'll have the ability to pay as a result
Right.
of that degree? Sure.
So now, first of all, the price of college will go down radically because they are not guaranteed an income from the federal government with all these minions that come up and get degrees.
With that, I agree. But this
Okay,
is
so I'm
sweeping reform you're talking about.
Yes. B, people won't go to a 4-year college and get a degree in gender studies that they can't make money on. They won't be under the illusion or deluded to believe that they're going to somehow make enough money to pay back the $200,000 they just borrowed to go to college.
What if they learn from their gender studies degree program that they can self-identify as being debt-free? What then?
Oh yeah, that's a good point. So
Just saying.
I actually kind of agree with that. That's actually probably the only benefit of it. I have a nephew who just got a 4-year degree from UNH in music. right?
Which part?
What?
Music's a big umbrella.
I think teaching.
Oh, cool.
Okay.
Okay.
He loves music. That's where his passion was. He's smart. He did all the things he needed to do. Guess what? There was no jobs.
Ooh.
Okay? So now he's followed his passion, which is nice. It might be very, very special.
Yeah.
And he is working now down in Florida at one of the amusement parks in Orlando.
Interesting.
Okay? Because he just couldn't.
Performing music, perhaps?
No.
Or taking tickets? Or
No,
something?
I don't know what he's doing, but that's where he could actually find enough money to live on.
So he had to get what he could get.
He had to get what he could get. So
Gotcha.
so I'm saying that if a child gets to be, 18, they want to go to college and they want to get a music degree, the bank is going to look and say, okay, well, there's only of the kids graduating with 4-year music degrees with UNH, only 1% is finding jobs in that occupation, and they are making X.
So look at the actual stats.
The actual
stats. The exit stats.
What you can actually do with a degree in Y.
In today's marketplace.
In today's market.
Okay.
Okay? Now you have the same kid goes in, okay, well, I guess that's not lucrative. What if I do it in a technical end of the music degree? Engineering, music engineering, like working for radio, TV, whatever it is. And then they find out, well, that's a 40% chance that you'll get a job, and it will pay itself back, et cetera, et cetera.
Sure.
But if there's no market for a degree that you're getting, why is the government loaning you a nickel for it? It's stupid. It's taxpayer money, basically.
Well, it's a bum investment.
It is.
It's just
What
poor
if you
poor management.
Picture it as your money, okay? Forget about. I think this
It
is
is
the
my money. It comes from
It
taxes.
is. But all of a sudden, you're a pretty wealthy guy, and kid comes to you and says, "Hey, Eric, I want to go to college for this job, and I just need $200,000. Will you loan it to me?" You say, "Well, okay, I'll loan it to you. I want 10%. When you graduate, I want $220,000. You'll pay me back plus interest every week." But then Eric's going to look at, well, okay, well, I don't know how much that is a week. Let's just call it,
whatever.
$300 a week or $400 a month.
So the next question will be
The question is, Eric's going to look and say, well, if you get that degree, you're not going to be able to possibly afford a place to live, food, and to pay me back. So if I lend you this money, I am doing a disservice to you by doing so.
I'm putting my money at risk and I'm enslaving you
Correct.
and making your future unmanageable.
Unmanageable and it's destructive. Whereas on the other hand, he goes to Eric, Uncle Eric, I want to get a degree in mechanical engineering. Eric looks at the jobs for graduates of mechanical engineering. They're making $70,000 right out of school if they graduate from this school. That's the school he got accepted into. And he says, $70,000. Yeah, you could afford to pay me back. Sure.
So what do you say to people who are selling the notion, the bumper sticker notion that follow your dreams, follow your passion, the money will come? You've heard that expression. A lot of people have.
I think you should.
I think it's a great piece of encouragement.
Yes,
But
it's
in
not-
this scenario, when we're talking about federally subsidized student loans, should one follow that game plan?
They should follow it on their own dime. In other words, if
Okay.
somebody really just wants to, because they love music and they want to follow that passion, they do what their grandfather and probably their father and their grandmother and mother did, which is you work full time and you take courses at night and you follow your passion, because then when you graduate, you won't owe hardly anything, and you can afford to do things that are less lucrative to get into the business. Like
Got it.
you know about acting. There are
I do.
hundreds of thousands of people who want to become a great actor or actress.
Competition's ridiculous in the commercialized portion of performing arts, whether it's stage or film or TV.
Yeah, and
or-
if you
or
do it,
whatever.
you do it because you love it, and you want to do it, And if you get wealthy because of it, that's a fringe benefit.
You'll be part of the less than 1%
Right.
of those that are going for that brass ring.
So I would never
if that happens to
discourage
you.
a child or grandchild from passionately following their desire to become a thespian
Yeah, or
Okay.
musician or what have you.
or what have you. But what I would say is if you're going to do that, there's no money in it. So do it, work yourself up into a decent job that actually pays the bills, and take those courses at night and follow that passion in community theaters and things like that, and enjoy it and have fun. But if you take out all those loans just to get that accomplished, you are going to regret being in the trade
Yeah.
instead of enjoying
You're
it.
putting a financial noose around your neck.
Exactly.
Besides which, you're putting pressure on yourself to be commercially oriented rather than inspiration oriented. If you do end up with a job in that field, you'll be constantly pushing for whatever pays you, and you won't be free to really enjoy.
And you'll
enjoy the
subject
journey.
yourself to sexual abuse and things like that just to get a job.
Where'd that come from? Oh, you're talking about.
Harry Weinstein.
Oh.
Why are women willing to give themselves to him
I see your point.
or put
I
up
see
with
your
his crap?
Let's-
Because that was the way to get in. That was their ticket, the meal
point.
ticket.
It's a tough biz. You basically just paraphrased something that I'm now going to paraphrase, which is advice that Robin Williams gave to people that were coming up in the business or had a passion to do it. He said, "Go tell your jokes, go out there and take the roles, but make sure you get a damn good welding job."
Exactly.
Now the way he told it, I'm sure was a lot more funny, but
But that's what he said. Yeah,
but
he's
that's
right.
basically what he's saying.
Get a good welding job, then you can follow whatever passion you want.
And go right ahead. And regardless of his ultimate mortal fate, the fact is the man was a genius and outrageously talented, a tornado of talent. And I think that's good advice.
It is. So that was 3 silver mallet jobs tonight.
Pretty good. You showed up with a loaded mallet.
I
So-
did.
Yeah.
Now I want to make a silver mallet. Now I'm thinking
So,
about the silver mallet instead. of what we're
Before we
talking
go,
about.
we've got 3 minutes left in the show for this evening, and
Yes.
I always enjoy our talks.
Mallets.
Our mallet-filled talks,
Right.
because it takes us all over the planet. Something happened in Concord this past week.
Yes.
That's a little interesting.
Speaker of the House
The
thing?
Speaker of the House election did take place.
Yes, it did.
It's the person to succeed Honorable Sean Jasper,
Yep.
who served in the House as well as in town politics and budget committees and what have you for a good long time. So he's got a distinguished background of civic service.
Yeah.
So we should honor that service. And he's gone on to become the commissioner of the Department of Agriculture
Right.
here in New Hampshire.
Animal husbandry.
Oh, well, heavens to Betsy.
Is that legal?
Commissioner of Animal Husbandry?
I don't know.
Sounds sketchy to me.
It does
I don't know.
sound a little bit.
I don't
like
want to take
kinky.
away from his honorific past.
Oh, that
but-
would not stop me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
who won the election for
Gene
Speaker?
Chandler, who has been the speaker, he was actually speaker when I was first elected.
Right.
Offered to just run and fulfill Jasper's term. He said he's not going to run next year.
That I did not know.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So we have a Speaker of the House.
we have a Speaker of the House, and
it's-
that is Gene Chandler.
It's Honorable Gene Chandler.
The
who's
Honorable
been
Gene Chandler, who's
with
done
the
it
House
before.
a long time.
He knows what to do, and
Sure.
it was kind of a foregone conclusion. I know, and people who know watch the show. I supported Al Baldessaro, and I think he would have done a great job. But Gene had the ace in the hole, which was he was already in leadership, and you have roughly 75 people in leadership who don't want to lose their positions in leadership. So he had 75 votes to begin with.
So leadership means people that are chairs and co-chairs of committees.
co-chairs, committee whips, whatever.
Stuff like that. Okay.
So he had the ace in the hole to
So
begin
there
with.
it is. That's the new leadership. That's the top chair in the New Hampshire House, and Gene Chandler's got it. So we just thought we'd pass that on to you folks, in case you didn't know.
And that wraps it up for another week of silliness at Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades.
Thank you to Charles Dickens and Silver Mallets.
Chucky Dickens and Silver Mallets.
Chucky.
Chucky.
That's scary. I just thought of the Chucky character, with the crazy face.
Have you read some of those
The little
stories?
doll.
The guy was pretty.
No, I just picked
pretty
this up yesterday.
depressed.
I'm kind of excited.
Tiny Tim's will
Say bye.
Bye.
Bye, folks.